Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Whatever the I Want podcast, where I, your host, Gaby, gets to talk about whatever the I want. And today's episode is going to be about my sexuality. So for those who don't know, I was raised extremely Catholic to the point where I was essentially an altar server, which is where you help the priest, you help them with the body of Christ, you hold the Bible, you're up there, like at the forefront of everything. I gave readings at church. I would go like pray the rosary at people's houses. So I was very, very immersed into Catholicism. And whenever I first heard of the word gay, I was in elementary school. And I remember it only really being an association of like boys liking boys. I don't think it ever really crossed my mind that a girl could like a girl and like that there was a word for it. So since I grew up so Catholic, once I started hearing that things were like about gay and like being gay is wrong and how you're going to go to hell and all these things, I first realized like I had a crush on a girl when I was in about the 4th grade. So like around this time, I meet this girl in elementary school and I was just like obsessed with her is the only way that I can put it. Her and I were always together. I remember one summer we didn't really get to hang out outside of school. So like one summer she got us like diaries. And so I got to write in mine and she got to write in hers over the summer. And then we like switched them once the school year started so we could see what the other one was up to the entire summer, which was like the cutest thing ever. She had like really kinky curly hair that was like a lighter brown. She had brown eyes, very like big eyes too. She was like on the lighter side, very like petite but tall too. She was Puerto Rican. And I just remember her being one of the only person that I felt like could really like see me for me. She let me be so like weird and quirky, and she was the exact same way. Like she gave me a space and an environment where I could just feel like myself. Like I didn't have to pretend to be anybody I wasn't. However, I do remember like whatever she liked, like I wanted to like too, which is kind of how I've always been whenever I have a crush on somebody. It's like, I remember I had a crush on this guy in high school and he loved Wiz Khalifa. So what did I start doing? Like listening to more Wiz Khalifa, and he tied his shoes a certain way. So I tied my shoes that way too. Like I've kind of always been like that of like, I'm going to adopt things that I like from these people into my life, or like, let me just see what the hype is about. And so, yeah, that characteristic has always been in me. Like I will be influenced by the people around me because like, I'm just curious. Like if I like you and you like this, like, let me just check it out. So I was like, okay, I have a crush on this girl. And it probably didn't hit me till like later on, after like we had already gone to different schools from middle school, where I was like, oh no, like I seriously had a crush on this girl. And at that point, like still the term like lesbian or bi or pan, like those weren't words that I really still like was hearing of until I was about 15. And on Tumblr, I see this word called pansexual, and it had all the definitions of like other words too. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is me. This is me. And I remember feeling so like relieved and just like, oh my gosh, like everything makes sense now. But anywho, in between here, I am in middle school, and I remember my grandma would drive us, like pick us up from my middle school, like after cheerleading practice or whatever, and she would take us home. And I remember I would ask her so often, like, Grandma, how do you feel about gay people? And what are your thoughts on gay people? And do you think gay people are going to hell? And what do you think? Is it okay to like a girl? And I remember for a very long time, it was just the same answer. It was, it's so wrong. You're going to go to hell. God doesn't want that for you. You know, it's a sin. You know, basically just repeating to me what the Catholic Church has already told me. And then one day I asked her, like, Grandma, how do you feel about gay people? And she was like, you know, Your grandpa and I were actually just talking about it last night. And we decided that if one of our grandkids was gay, we would have nothing to do but to accept them and love them for who they are. And I remember feeling this huge wave of relief wash over me. I was like, oh my God, like, I don't know how we got here, but we're here. Like, what do I do now? And I don't remember if I came out to her in that moment. But I do remember at some point I was in the car with my mom, and when I can't even remember how old I was, maybe like 17. And we were talking about sexuality, and I was like, have you ever heard of pansexuality? She was like, no, I've never heard of it. What is that? And I was like, well, this is how I identify, but it basically is that you are attracted to people for being people. It doesn't matter whether or not they're a man or a woman or however they identify. It's just like you're just attracted to a person. And she just says like, I think I might be that too. And I was like, what the heck? Like, what in the world? Like, what parallel universe am I living in where my family went from saying one thing, you know, like the complete opposite of all that I've ever wanted, you know, like all these terrible things are going to happen to you. It's wrong. And now they're like, no, actually it's not wrong. And we're going to love you no matter what. And down to the point where it's like, wait, I might be that too. And I'm like, what is this? And thankfully I've, you know, had my family be super supportive. I think a big reason why I haven't particularly dated women though is because I was caught kissing a girl when I was really young, and an adult like walked in and was like, this is so wrong, you can't be doing this. And obviously they were Catholic as well, and I think their point of view was obviously that, but also like, you're so young, like you shouldn't be kissing anybody, like this is wrong. But I think in my brain, like psychologically, it was like, it's because it's a girl. And so I think that weight has kind of carried with me throughout my life. And I didn't know how to process it for a really long time, but I think over the years I've been able to process it. And I think even more recently because I've been peeling back the layers of who I am, you know, of like, this is who people have told me who I am, and this is who I really am. And, you know, like so I've been like revisiting all these parts of my life of like, do I like girls? Do I not like girls? Like, is it okay for me to like girls? Is it because of psychologically, like these things have happened, so then that's why I feel this way, or that's why I don't feel this way? And so I do think that I am getting over that hump of like, yeah, I know that my family accepts me, but however, there's that like traumatic experience of what happened whenever I was a kid. And it's like when it was physically in somebody's face, it was wrong. And I also have to remember the timeline of things. Like that was when I was really young. I mean, I remember like watching Blue's Clues and like the little like notepad being like in the room, you know? And so it's like, I think a big part of it is just like letting go of like, it's not wrong, and I am allowed to be who I am. And if that means I want to date a girl, that's great. If that means I want to date a non-binary person, that's great. If it means I want to date a cis man, that's great too. Like, I think it's just about understanding that sexuality is fluid and that it's okay for me to just be who I am. And ultimately, that's all that I can ever do, is just be authentic to myself. And I remember also questioning, like, are these things taught, right? Like, is being gay taught, right? Like, these are questions that, like, I'm sure every person has, like, considered, you know, like, is it taught? And I remember hearing my niece, we were watching a movie, and she's maybe, like, 5 at the time. She was really young. And she sees a girl on the screen, and she's like, oh, she's so pretty, I want to kiss her. And I was like, oh my gosh, if she comes out as gay later on in life, I cannot be shocked, because she literally said she wants to kiss that girl. And so, I mean, honestly, a part of me has like healed through seeing the kids, because like it's not ever been like, those things are like, hate is taught, right? Like that's not something that anybody is born. Like no kid is born homophobic. Like she literally is a child saying like, oh, she wants to kiss a girl. And now, does that mean like she's having these like sexual feelings towards women? Like probably not. It just means like she understands that like, oh, like you kiss people that you like, or, you know, you kiss people that you love. And so she's having, you know, this, you know, like, oh my gosh, she's pretty. Like I want to kiss her. Like, I mean, it's such an innocent thing, right? But I think there's just something to learn from that it's like, even in this child, it's so natural, right, for her to have these feelings. And so whenever I look back at my childhood, I've kind of always had crushes on girls. For a long time, honestly, all I was ever really around were women. Like all of my girlfriends were girls. And I don't know at what point in my life that it all just kind of switched to where the majority of people in my life close to me were guys, but that did happen at some point. So that's something for me to like sit down, journal about, and like, why did this all happen? But anywho, back to my childhood crush. I still get so much inspiration from her because she was always just herself. Like, I mean, most people would describe her as like weird, but I thought she was like the coolest thing ever. And she was so funny and so witty. And even now, like, I've wondered, like, what is she doing? What is she up to? And I have tried figuring it out. I've tried. And you can find anything by, like, looking somebody up. But for some reason, I cannot find this girl's social media. I can find anything other than her social media. So, and I mean, she was always the type to be kind of, like, doing her own thing. So there's a very high possibility that she just doesn't have it, which I could see. However, she was always an artist. So some part of me is like, is she still drawing? Like, is she still herself? You know what I mean? I think we all get that bit of like curiousness, you know, thinking about your past. So I am very curious to see what she's up to. But I do think that she has also influenced like my type in a person. You know, I think that in general, my type, whether it be however the person identifies, is somebody who is quirky and dorky and honestly wearing glasses. Whatever gender identity people have had, glasses for some reason has always been a big component of like what I am attracted to. And I will also say being artsy. Like I love being with people who are creative in whatever way, whether it be like coding, whether it be drawing, whether it be graphic design. I've dated people who just are creative. And I think that is something that I know is my type, right? Like my type is somebody who is these things. Now, my type compared to like guys versus girls is very different because in general, I love curly hair, but especially on women, I love curly hair. And I don't know if it has to do with like my first crush. I remember in college, I was asked on a date by a girl. And we were like talking and I could kind of tell that like it was as more than friends, but neither of us had like come out to the other. And she invited me to a bar and I was so nervous that I just kind of like said I couldn't go, even though some part of me wanted to. But at that time I was also going through a breakup and I was about to graduate college, that it was just kind of like too many moving parts at once. I just don't think I was particularly ready to like take on this whole new avenue of like dating a woman and what is that like in the public space. Like I don't know what that looks like because I haven't particularly like gone on a date with a woman. I mean, I don't know if I've necessarily held like a girl's hand in public that like wasn't a friend, but I know I've definitely kissed girls in public. And I think for me it's just like it's either or. I feel like most people are either like hypersexualizing you or it's like nobody wants to see that. And so I just don't know what that space looks like. But I know that that's something that I kind of owe it to myself to kind of explore, even if it's just going on one date with the woman and just like kind of like seeing where that takes me. But I also think it's just funny because I'll end up on like lesbian talk, queer talk, and then it's just like, oh, hi, nice to meet you. And then they're like, one's proposing, and then they're like, already have the U-Haul and they're moving in. And, you know, people in the comments would be like, oh my gosh, y'all were moving so slow. That's so crazy. Like, can't relate. Because it's a stereotype, because like women in general love and love to experience love and kind of just dive right in. And what happens when you put two women together? It's that at an accelerated pace. So yeah, I mean, I am not saying that like I'm gonna like jump into something. I'm not quite ready to date yet. I can feel myself like preparing, you know what I mean? Like, I don't feel like I'm at the point where like I'm ready to open up my heart to date yet. I mean, it's been months since I've been out of my relationship. I did grieve a lot of it while I was in it, and I feel like I've grieved a lot of it outside of it. Because I've just like done the things, you know, like I sit there and I cry and I let myself let it all out, and I'll journal about it, and I've processed it all. But I have realized that I'm just not quite there yet. I'm not quite at the point where it's like, oh, I'm ready. You know, when you kind of just know that you're ready. I don't know if, I'm sure you know the feeling. I remember even with my first boyfriend, like for a while, he was like, are you ready to like have sex? Is this something that you want? And I'm like, no. And we had that conversation several times. Like, is this something that you want? Like, are you ready for it? You know, what's happening? And for a very long time, it was like, no, 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 no. And then there was one day where I was like, I'm ready. And I feel the same way with like everything in my life. I kind of just wait for that, like, I'm ready. And so it was interesting because I guess leaving the relationship, I had to hit that point of I'm ready, to now I am waiting for that moment to where I feel like I'm ready to move on from the relationship. I don't quite feel like my heart is ready to be given to somebody else, because I feel like in a lot of ways, my heart is still with somebody else. You know what I mean? And so I feel like once I finally like let go of like, okay, you don't have it anymore. Like, it's mine. And now I'm ready to share it with somebody else. I'm at the point where it's like mostly mine, like, but he still has, you know, parts of it. He still has parts of it. And so I'm glad that I know that about myself, because I'd much rather be fully aware of what's happening than for me to like push myself to be open to a relationship when I know that I'm not ready for it, and to potentially hurt other people along the way, because that's not fair to somebody else for me to be going on dates and, you know, they're looking to settle down or they're looking for something serious. And I'm like, I'm not ready. I'm not there yet. And so I'm still not at the point where like I'm ready to like casually date. I feel like when I have casually dated, it's been because I was ready to kind of give my heart to somebody. Like I was just ready to move on, and I don't think I'm there yet. And I think that that's okay. I know that that time will come. I just have to be patient and to not rush it. I think there's no timeline of knowing whether or not, like, I can't just say like in 2 weeks from now I'll be fully healed and everything will change. I mean, this could happen overnight. It could be like I wake up tomorrow and I'm like, oh, I think I'm ready. A couple of years ago, whenever I had Hinge, I actually did have it open to both men and women. I did notice, however, that I was matching more with guys than I was women. I think in general, I just wasn't swiping as much on women. I don't know if maybe it was because since I at that point in my life was like hypercritical of myself, I potentially was projecting that onto other women too. I will also say though that I had noticed that on dating apps, a lot of women used filters. And that for me personally is just a really big turnoff. I used to use filters a lot when I was younger. I mean, you can go back to, not particularly on like my feed post, but like on my stories, like I would use filters. And throughout my life, I heard this content creator mention it. And she was like, when you use a filter, you are essentially kind of like misleading people. You're not showing them who you truly are. You're showing them you with a filter, you with this mask on, right? Like you might not see a filter as a mask, but it kind of is you masking either some of your features or parts of you. And so I think over the years, my perspective on filters has entirely changed. And now I'm like, I want to show up authentically in the world. And how do I do that? It's by not masking who I am. And I think filters can do that. So I think that when it comes to dating or dating apps, that is something for me to consider, like, because subconsciously I was doing it before, but now it's like, I also want to be with somebody who shows up in the world authentically, even though if that might not be their perception of it. I think for me, that's just how I receive it, is like, okay, not to say if you use filters, you're fake, but if you use filters, there's a part of you that you're hiding. And so I think that since I've been able to kind of peel back those layers, like, well, what am I hiding? Right. And for a lot of it, it was feeling insecure about my skin. Or it was just like, oh, these filters make my lips look bigger, or they make my nose look like this, or they make my, complexion look like that. And so like, I really was, if I think about it, hiding. Like, I didn't want people to see how I looked like normally. And now that I've kind of gotten over that, it's like, okay, well, how can I know what I'm looking for in a relationship, and how can I know what I'm looking for without also judging people, right? Because maybe people just aren't at where I'm at when it comes to like levels of consciousness, or like when it comes to their healing journey or growth journey. It's not to say that I need to be with somebody who is completely healed, because I don't know if you ever are completely healed. I kind of feel like you can be in a lot of ways. But I do think it's kind of like, you, like, for example, like with my ex, girl, I thought I was done crying over him. And out of nowhere, last night, I was so emotional. And I ended up writing a poem about it. And it's called It Was Supposed to Be You. And it's just like, I think it's just good to know where you're at. This has gone off on like a complete tangent about like dating and me being ready to date. But I do feel like it ties into my sexuality, because I mean that this is a component of like dating. Like when I am ready to start dating, it is going to be something that I explore. Dating people of all gender identities and what that looks like. I just want to say thank you to all of you for giving me the space to feel comfortable to share things about myself that you might not necessarily see by just looking at me. I think a lot of times we forget that everybody else has their own lives, their own experiences, their own things, their own triggers, their own memories that you don't see by looking at a person, Like, even if you look at me physically, nobody really sees like a scar that I have on my leg. It's a burn mark that I have that happened when I was a kid. But in general, like, you don't see what people have experienced in life. And so I just want to say like how grateful I am to all of you for giving me the space to be able to just pour my heart out and to just share whatever is going on in my brain and what's weighing on me in my heart. I didn't know what I was going to talk about today. And out of nowhere, it just kind of was like, I was just like in the mirror and I was like, oh my gosh, like thinking about my first girl crush. And I was like, okay, I think I'm ready to film today's episode. And so I was able to do it. So thank you all so much for being here. Thank you for giving me this space. And to anybody who's questioning their sexuality, I highly recommend just sitting with yourself, journaling, and really thinking about what feels right for you. And whenever you find, whatever, and this can apply to anything in life, whatever feels right for you is for you. And so whenever I found the word pansexual, I was like, everything made sense in my life at that point. So it was because of this simple social media post. But whatever feels right for you is for you. Don't allow for other people to influence you and make you question who you are and why you are the way that you are. I think just coming to terms with who you are and accepting yourself as you are is what's most important. And you can dive deep into all of the other things that make sense for you. But I think all that you can do in life is learn to love and accept yourself for who you are. And so that's the first step into loving yourself. It's like, well, what can I love about myself? And for me, that's learning about my sexuality and where it kind of all started. And the story starts when I was a kid, having a crush on a Puerto Rican girl with big curly hair. She was so cute. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.